and welcome to EMO's Creative Studio. I'm Liz, and today's video is a quick tutorial on how to put together a quilt using a top, which I have here, batting, and backing. This quilt top is made from a wonky style block. I didn't follow any kind of pattern, just used scraps and my rotary cutter. Wonky style means the block or piece of fabric is cut or sewn off center. As you can see, some of these are not really straight. See, right here? This gives the block an asymmetrical look. This quilt measures approximately 52 inches wide by 90 inches long, and it's a good size for a full, or definitely a good size for a twin-size bed, or even a nice blanket to cuddle under while on the couch or in a comfy chair. Each of the blocks approximately measures 15 inches square, and that's one of these. There are 8 blocks in this quilt. In each of the big blocks, there are 4 smaller blocks. Right here. 2, 3, 4. Made from jelly roll scraps that I have. 4 pieces sewn together, then cut into a size square that you want to work with your quilt. I saved up enough money to buy a roll of batting. I think it was 135 yards, and this particular batting is wide enough so that I can just cut the length that I need, which is 90 inches, to insert in between the top and the bottom. Now let's talk about the backing fabric for a moment. Like most of you, I am on a budget with spending money for fabric. So I can't afford to get the backing material that's 108 inches wide. So this particular fabric is 45 inches wide, and I have to cut it and fit it so that it can fit the back of this quilt, which I said was 52 by 90. So what I'm going to do is I think I have enough fabric here to cut it in half, sew it down the middle, and then make a long backing for this particular quilt. So while I was measuring to cut this fabric for the backing in half, to my dismay I found out that it's not long enough to cut in half for this particular length of quilt. So I'm going to have to come up with something very creative. The width of the backing fabric is 45, and I believe I said the width of the quilt is 52 inches. So I'm going to have to piece together something, probably use this particular piece as the center, and then maybe make a border of whatever's left of this particular fabric along the edges there. Figuring out that I needed to add at least 10 inches to the end, what I decided to do was add on each side of the ends, and instead of trying to match up the zigzags, I'm going to go in a different direction. So each piece here is 5 inches. Of course, I made it longer so that I can square everything up really well. So we are going to sew this on to the edges. I've already cut the selvages off of the ends, and what I'll do is I'll sew these on. Again, I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and now I'm going to sew. As you can see, the zigzag goes in this direction of the original full piece, and then the little added piece I'm going to add, the zigzag goes up and down. So let me show you a little bit of the sewing that I'm going to do. Again, try to keep it at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The better the seam allowance, the more accurate the seam allowance, the better your item is going to match up or iron out good. Since I have additional fabric left over from the backing, I'm going to make my binding from the backing material. I will show you this process later in the video. And this is how it looks sewn, the one side sewn to the edge. And now the finished product. What I decided to do after much thought, instead of making or adding a binding all the way around, I used a method called self-binding, which is extending the backing fabric beyond the finished quilt. In this case, I extended the backing 2 inches all the way around. 1 inch folded and then another inch folded to have the result of 1 inch binding. Top stitched at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. My border right here is 3 inches, and as mentioned earlier, I gave you the size of the quilt. It turned out to be a little bit smaller. It's no longer 52 inches across because I had to remove 2 inches all the way around on my border in order to bind it properly because I didn't have enough fabric to do the self-binding. So let's review a little bit on this video. This video is showing you how to put together a quilt. There's 3 layers that you sandwich your quilt. You have your top layer, your layer that has the blocks that you put together. Your center layer is your batting, and then your third layer of your sandwich is your backing. To quilt it or put it together or keep the sandwich together, I hand quilted or hand tied this quilt. This is a new process that I'm doing because I don't have a regular quilting machine. Those are a little bit expensive, and right now can't afford that. So I wanted to try something a little bit different. I have quilted on the machine before, and it's a very tedious and hard project to do, especially if the arm of your machine is smaller. You got to bunch everything together. This hand tying took me a total of maybe 6 to 8 hours, and after doing it, it got easier. Now this is my second project of hand tying, and I think I will continue hand tying for the next few projects as we go along. Other than that, this is the completed project. A lot of changes from the beginning of the video to now of what I wanted to do, especially now since I'm in a rush and I want to gift this to a friend who is having surgery, so I wanted to get it done and give it to her before she went to have surgery. Thank you for watching. I hope that you were able to understand what I had told you in the video. If not, if you have any questions, comments, please put them below. Like my video. Please subscribe. My name is Liz. This is EMO's Creative Studio. Happy quilting, and until the next time, take care. Bye.